Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Monday, March 24th. This is episode 513 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. It is Monday. You know what that means. It is another Mock Draft Monday episode. Today, we're going to take a look at Armand Membou. It is the Armand Membou edition here today on the podcast, and let's dive straight into this one. Last week, of course, we broke down Tyler Warren. We have now broken down Mason Graham, Tet McMillan, taking a look at a couple different prospects, handful of guys from the skill positions. Now we're going to take a look at shoring up the trenches here with right tackle Armand Membou. That is our first pick of the day, 7th overall, 6'4", 332 pounds, junior out of Missouri. And Membou, we've talked about him a little bit already on the podcast. Obviously, we had an episode last week discussing him and Warren and kind of making the case for both those guys to potentially go at 7 for the Jets. And I've said this many times. There is probably about 4 guys I would say that I'm kind of on board with, or realistically would really like the Jets to get at number 7. Tet McMillan, Mason Graham, Tyler Warren, Armand Membou. Those are like the 4 guys that, in my opinion, I don't think the Jets can go wrong with any of those 4 guys. And the minute that pick is made, I would be okay with it, no matter who it is, any of those 4 players, in really no particular order. Membou, of course, being one of them. And really over the last week or two now, with the way free agency played out and now seeing the hole that the New York Jets have at right tackle post free agency, Membou, you've started to see a lot of links. There's starting to be a lot of steam. There's starting to be a lot of smoke around him and this New York Jets team potentially taking him here at number 7, even to the point of, you know, you'd be surprised. You've seen some reports talk about that some people would be surprised if he gets past 7 if he's there for the New York Jets. And I really like Membou. I would totally be on board again if the New York Jets want to make this move. I've said this many times. You know, I know there's a lot of good tackles in this draft that play left tackle, but what I like, one of my most likable traits about Membou is he plays right tackle, and the New York Jets need a right tackle. And what's great about Membou is he can come in, slot in right away at right tackle, and Membou and Olu are your tackle duo for a very long time in a perfect world. You look at some of his numbers, some of the things that he's been able to do well. Last season had a 90.6 overall Pro Football Focus grade and was consistent in all areas. An 87.6 run blocking grade, an 86.6 pass blocking grade, an 87.4 zone blocking grade, 76.7 gap blocking grade, and a true pass set pass block grade of 82.2. He didn't allow a single sack last season. He's also only allowed 3 sacks in his career, 2 in 2023, 1 in 22. Has never allowed a quarterback hit, only allowed 8 QB hurries last season. Very productive, and like I said, reliable in both areas. You can rely on him as a run blocker, which is important for this system that the Jets are going to run. Lots of runs. You expect that style of Baltimore Ravens type of offense that we've talked about a lot, especially Engstrand coming over from Detroit. You expect to see Breece Hall and Braylon Allen used a lot more this year coming from Detroit, where they utilized David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, of course, in a very big way. So he's a guy that can run block for you, and then when Fields needs to step up and make plays as a passer, you can rely on him to pass block as well. 800 snaps last year at right tackle. The year before that, 857. In his first year, he played 10 games, 307. Uh, Interesting, actually, athletic metrics. Very athletic. Kind of one of the things that flies under the radar. When you look at some of the strengths here for Membou, very athletic for his size, of course, 6'4", 332. And you look at some of just the combine and next-gen stats breakdown, his kind of estimated athleticism score was a 94 according to next-gen stats, which is first among all offensive tackles in this draft. So athleticism certainly is a strength of his. Like I mentioned, the run blocking and the pass protection, two things that he's able to do very well. Good hands and body control, especially in pass pro. Some of the weaknesses for Membou, a little bit of on the smaller end, only 6'4", not necessarily that big 6'6", 6'7" offensive lineman, slightly smaller, and can at times struggle against bull rushers, especially those that in the NFL level, right? The NFL level bull rushers that come at you with speed, come at you downhill, can tend to struggle a little bit with those guys. But look, Membou, clearly in my opinion, I think many people's opinions, the positives outweigh the negatives. He's a very reliable right tackle that doesn't really have many holes in pass protection or run blocking and fits what the Jets need, a right tackle. You don't have a ton of faith in Chuck Okorafor, Max Mitchell, Carter Warren. Membou, the minute he's drafted, steps in as the should-be week one starter for 2025 and beyond. And ideally with this move, you lock up your tackle duo for the future. So I would totally be on board with this here for the New York Jets. Again, he's one of those four guys that I'd be open to taking at number 7 that have a realistic chance of falling to number 7. Armand Membou, right tackle, Missouri. Moving on now, round 2, pick 42. So you get the tackle, and this is where it gets interesting. Now, where do the Jets pivot? Do you go defensive line in round 2? Do you go safety? Do you go wide receiver? Now you got to start to hammer out some of these other needs that you weren't able to hammer out there with the 7th overall pick. I'm going to go wide receiver here, round 2, pick 42. Kind of a fan favorite in a way, a name that I've been waiting to talk about, just the way these mock drafts have fell out for me when I do these episodes, just hasn't been there at 42, but that is Jaden Higgins, wide receiver, Iowa State, 6'4", 214-pound senior, 4 years in college football, spent the first 2 years of his collegiate career at Eastern Kentucky, and then before the 2023 season transferred to Iowa State for 2023 and the 2024 seasons, and that's where he's taken off. You look at his numbers last year, a massive season from a production standpoint, one of his best. Had a career high in receptions with 87, had a career high in yards, 1,183, added on 9 touchdowns, which was the second highest mark in his career and the highest in his 2 years at Iowa State, 13.6 yards per reception. When you look at his 2 seasons at Iowa State, again, this is where he really took off. 140 receptions, 2,166 yards, 15 touchdowns, 15.4 yards per reception, 90.3 PFF grade last year, and in an 85 PFF grade in 2023. So 2 very productive seasons at Iowa State. Last year had a 90.5 receiving grade, an 87.8 grade versus man coverage, 58.3% contested catch rate, and just a 2.2% drop rate. Some other numbers: 14 contested catches last year, was top 25 among all receivers in college football, and also had 2.66 yards per route run, which is something that I do want to touch upon. When you look at Higgins and his strengths, something that I really like is, number one, he can play the X, and that's what the Jets need. You need an X to pair alongside Garrett Wilson. Higgins can come in and do that. Number 2, route running ability for Higgins is off the charts. One of the better route runners you are going to find in this draft, specifically not just route running, but also his route tree. He can run a variety of routes, right? There's a couple receivers, there's a couple players in this draft that we've talked about that are maybe super athletic, a ton of speed, but footwork maybe is not great. Route tree is not great. Route running's kind of the opposite. He isn't he's athletic, receiver, more of your reliable, big body, good route runner. Just, again, that reliable receiver that you throw him the football, he's going to catch it, right? That 2.2% drop rate was one of the lowest in college football last year. That's what you're getting. You're getting a consistent, reliable for a guy that played 4 years in college and was able to get better in all 4 of those seasons. And, of course, had a ton of success last year with his first 1,000-yard season, putting up 1,100 yards with Iowa State. I really like Higgins a lot. I think you look at this pick here, there's a couple guys that can kind of fit. We've talked about Alec Aomanar, Jack Besh, Higgins, another name here to throw into this. Again, some of those strengths, reliable, very good route tree, a very wide route tree, good route runner, good footwork, and can play the X, which is important because that's, I think, what the Jets need most importantly. Is that X alongside Garrett Wilson. 6'4", bigger body, contested catchability is something that also, I think, pops out. And is also going to catch the football. I think that's important, right? This is a Jets team that's had so many drops these last couple years. Find guys that are going to catch the football consistently and make consistent plays. I think Higgins, to me, is a guy with a very high floor. I don't know necessarily how high his ceiling is because he's not this crazy athletic guy where his ceiling can, completely take off. But I think he's a high floor where you know what you're getting and he's a reliable option for this team. And I'll say this about Higgins too, which is kind of interesting. But you look at actually like the athleticism metrics. Overall, like you watch him play, not the most athletic, but Next Gen Stats does rank him 5th most with a 90 athleticism score estimated. Now, again, that's not his strength, but maybe gets the NFL, maybe his speed increased slightly, but I think you know what you're getting out of this guy. Much needed to Garrett Wilson. That's Jaden Higgins. Day 2, first pick of day 2. Now second pick, moving on to the 3rd round. So you go offense back-to-back picks here. You go tackle, you go wide receiver. I'm going to flip on over now to the defensive side of the football. I take CJ West, round 3, pick 73 here, defensive lineman out of Indiana, 6'1", 316 pounds, senior, 5 seasons, collegiately, 4 at Kent State, and then transferred to Indiana last year for his final season. You could make a case for a couple guys here. Personally, I was kind of up against Alfred Collins and CJ West were my 2 guys that fell to the Jets here at 73. My opinion, I think CJ West has probably the higher floor. Collins might have, in my opinion, just watching the 2 and breaking the 2 down. Collins probably has, in my eyes, the slightly higher ceiling, but probably a lower floor. I think West has a higher floor where you know what you're getting out of him and needs less development and more of a can step in right away, make an impact. Collins might be more of that needs development, needs refining. So I go West here. Last season at a productive year, 42 total tackles, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, 8 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hits, and 19 quarterback hurries. He's a run stuffer. 88.1 run defense grade last year. Had an 83.8 PFF grade last season, 85.9 grade in 2023, and an 80.1 grade in 2022. Again, the reason why I like him, just the consistency that he's had throughout his collegiate career, including last year going to the Big Ten. Last season, on top of the run defense grade, which we already mentioned, 72.9 pass rush grade, a 10.1% pass rush win rate, but most importantly, an 11.4% run stop rate. That's something that I really sticks out. He's a guy that is a dominant run stuffer. That's what he's known for. You put him next, I think you could damage. But his pass rushing ability, I don't think can be overlooked either. And that's what I like about West a little bit more than a guy like Collins, is I think his pass rushing ability is slightly better and more reliable. It's not his strength, but it's still something to watch out for. And still something that at the NFL level, he can probably find his way into a few sacks, get to the backfield, cause some pressure, break up some plays. Will mainly be that run stuffer, but you can rely on him to also make some plays at times as a pass rusher. He has strong hands, high motor, good first step. One of his weaknesses, shorter arms. Like I mentioned, he's only 6'1", 316, not the longest guy. That shorter arms, only about 31.5-inch, which ranks both below the 10th percentile, which can cause him at times to struggle to wrap up, finish tackles in the backfield. But overall, in my opinion, I don't think it affects him a ton when you look at the film and you watch this guy defensively from a run-stopping perspective. High motor, quick first step. Those are things that I think pop out. Short arms, it's just going to kind of be with him. But he found a way to overcome it in his 5 years in college football, producing at a pretty high level. And I like the idea of pairing Quinnen Williams next to that run stuffer and then your two pass rushers on the edge, so you get a good balance on this defensive line, because it's a unit last year that, of course, awful against the run. Really the last 2 years. So that's CJ West. Moving to day 3, we're going to go back to the well on offense. A prospect that I've been waiting a long time to talk about. Again, just hasn't really fallen, to me in some of these mock drafts, or I take a tight end earlier, whatever. But today we got him, round 4 pick 110, Harold Fannin Jr., tight end out of Bowling Green, 6'3", 241 pounds. This guy's a monster. You talk about receiving tight ends. You talk about giving Justin Fields more weapons from a receiving perspective. Harold Fannin Jr. is that perfect fit. He's the best receiving tight end in this draft. Is he the best overall tight end? No. Does he need some help as a run blocker? Yes. Is run blocking a massive weakness of his? No, I wouldn't even call it a weakness. But his strength, what he's known for, is his receiving ability. And for a guy that you can get early day 3, might fall day 2, but if you can get him here in round 4, I think this is great value, number 1. And number 2, you're getting a phenomenal weapon added to this offense from a passing game perspective. Just look at his numbers last year. And I understand that a lot of people are going to look at his numbers and say, okay, he's in the MAC, lower competition. He wasn't doing this at Penn State, like a Tyler Warren, or wasn't doing this at one of these Power 5, really 4 now conferences, right? But you can't take away what he did last season. 117 receptions, 1,555 yards, 10 touchdowns. He led college football last year in receptions and yards, and he led tight ends in touchdowns. He was arguably the best receiver, tight end, wide receiver combined in college football last year, with the 1,500 yards and the 117 receptions, and it really wasn't that close. Career numbers, 180 receptions, 17 touchdowns, 2,396 yards. This is a guy that can make a ton of plays as a receiver. He's also got an underrated yak ability, and he's pretty versatile. Another one of his strengths. He can play inline, can play slot, can play the X. He can do a whole bunch of things. And you talk about well-rounded. Run blocking's not even really much of a weakness for him. Last season, had a 75.2 run blocking grade, which was well above average. Now, his receiving grade of 96.4 is his clear strength. But this is a guy that I think actually is more well-rounded than some people give him credit for. I think a lot of people look at the receiving and say, that's great. What is he going to provide as a run blocker? I think he's better than a lot of people give him credit for. He also just had a 3.3% drop rate, a 54.5% contested catch rate. I'll throw some other numbers out here. Like I said, the yak ability was top 25 last year, 7.5 yards after catch. 333 deep yards, was third among tight ends. First in missed tackles forced with 34, tied for second in deep catches, and tied for fourth in contested catches. I mean, whether he was playing at Bowling Green or Alabama, it doesn't matter. The numbers, the film, fly off the charts for Harold Fannin Jr. And you're talking about a guy that you can get early day 3. Tremendous value in my eyes for a prospect like this. You want a receiving tight end, Harold Fannin Jr. is exactly that. And I think, too, some of the things that he does well fit what this Jets offense need. They need to push the tempo. They need to push it downfield a little bit more. How many times have years gone by where this team's been stuck in a 10-yard box offense where they don't stretch the field? Fannin Jr. can do that. He had 9 deep catches and 333 deep yards, both top 3 among tight ends in college football last year. The Jets need more of that. Not the quickest guy laterally, not the quickest guy in general, but someone that's got very good hands, can play a variety of spots, inline, slot, X, whatever you want, he can do it, and kind of an underrated run blocker. I'd also say that as well. So Harold Fannin Jr., I think, as a 4th-round pick, can step in and start and make an impact right away. Some of the plays and numbers pop off the charts. So that's our first pick here of day number 3. So far, you have offense, defense, offense. Now we're going to go back to the well here on defense, fill another need, and that is safety. Billy Bowman Jr., safety out of Oklahoma, 5'10", 192 pounds, senior, played his entire 4-year collegiate career at Oklahoma. Ball hawk. That's one of the biggest things that pop out. You look at some of the numbers here we'll give you. 55 total tackles last season, 3 passes defended, 2 interceptions, 3 tackles for loss. More importantly, though, when you look at his ball hawking ability and why I like him as a fit. Now, Billy Bowman, we'll break down some stuff here in a second. He fits the Jets from a creating a turnover ball hawking need. Run defense, though, does need a lot of work. We'll get you the good, though, here first. He led the Big 12 last year, or 2023, rather, led the Big 12 with 6 interceptions. That was also tied for second in all of college football. And he led all of college football with 3 pick sixes in 2023. This is a guy that's had 11 interceptions since 2022. Crazy interception numbers. A 76.0 coverage grade last year. A 74.9 overall grade. Also a forced incompletion rate of 9.4%, which was slightly above average. When you're looking at Billy Bowman, you're looking at a guy here that is ball skills, coverage, and a little bit of versatility. Can play slot, can also play free safety, shown to play the box as well. Can do a couple variety of different things. His versatility is also, I think, something that's worth noting. The negatives, though, are a little glaring. And why I think he's a guy that if he was a better tackler, you could probably make the case he could be a second-round talent, or a day 2 talent, rather. And then the big reason he falls to day 3 is the tackling. He had a 23.1% missed tackle rate, which was in like the orange area. PFF has their grading system, and the orange area is like danger. That's not good. Very, very bad. He also had just a 69.4 run defense grade, which was only really average. Tackling needs a lot of work. And I think you watch Billy Bowman, you read up on some of the scouting reports, you look at the numbers. I think you kind of got to live with it. the reason why he could still be a fit for the Jets is, as much as they're a team that has struggled tackling, they need to force more turnovers. They need more interceptions. And I like Bowman's upside from a ball hawking perspective, where he can just force turnovers and kind of have magnet hands. The Jets are a team that has been incredibly just stripped of turnovers in the last couple seasons. Bowman's a guy that can come in and make an instant impact in that area. And you hope that his tackling can improve a slight bit. But I would still say, if he can rack up interceptions and make plays in coverage, you hope that would kind of mask and cover over some of the issues and some of the gaffes he might have against the run. Slightly undersized, and that's part of it too. Does he, he's only 5'10". If he puts on a little bit more size, a little bit more muscle, does that potentially impact his run defense? Possibly. But you're looking at a guy that's very good in coverage and not very good against the run. I think I would be open to taking a 5th round pick on him, because the coverage numbers are, the coverage ability, the ball hawking ability is off the charts. Another area that the Jets have struggled in. All right, so that's Billy Bowman. Moving on now, second of 2 5th round picks, 162nd overall. We're going to go quarterback here. Quinn Ewers out of Texas, 6'2", 214, redshirt junior. Look, at this point in the draft, you could go with a couple different guys. Ewers will be out here. McCord might be. PFF Draft Simulator oftentimes has McCord falling to the 5th, although I think he'll go earlier than that. I think he'll probably go earlier, day 3, like 3rd or 4th round. Ewers, though, I could definitely see falling. Jets actually have a visit with Ewers. Look, this is a developmental quarterback option. We know what Quinn Ewers is, right? Arm talent, accuracy, improvising. His ability when you have to play backyard football is one of his strengths. When he has to roll out of the pocket, extend plays, and find guys with a limited amount of time where the play's broken down, it's impressive. The things that aren't good with Ewers and why he needs to probably sit a year or two is facing pressure. He does not fare well against pressure, which is something that you need to fare well against in the NFL. And he oftentimes forces the ball, which is not going to survive in the NFL if you're forcing the football into double coverage. You may get away with a couple plays in college. You're not going to get away with much in the NFL. And frankly, you didn't get away with much of that last year in college, because there was a lot of plays where he forced the ball into kind of iffy coverage spots, and it made him pay. 31 touchdowns last year were impressive, a career high for him, but he also had 12 interceptions, which was the most in his career. And I think what's interesting about Quinn Ewers last year was he led the SEC in both touchdowns and interceptions. It was kind of one of those years where he had a lot of explosive plays, the accuracy, the arm talent, all on display, but then you saw some of the ugly. And that was the forcing the football, facing pressure, and kind of just lobbing the ball out there and making some of those dumb decisions. Ewers was a guy, I think, going back to college last year, had an opportunity to potentially bump up his draft stock to be a first-round talent. And that didn't necessarily happen. And we're kind of back here with Ewers again, where he's that middle-round talent that has a lot of experience because he played a ton in college, but also is a guy that needs to probably sit and learn. Career numbers, 68 touchdowns, 24 picks, a 148 passer rating, 9,128 yards. I don't think it's bad to take a chance on him. Look, all these guys you take in the middle rounds. If it's a Dart, if it's a McCord, if it's a Milrow, if it's a Ewers, Tyler Show from Louisville's gaining some steam. They're all mid-round talents because of they all have their own problems or own questions, right? Dart, it's can he run an NFL offense? Because Ole Miss is not an NFL offense. Ewers, it's, can he limit the turnovers after a 12 interception season? Milrow, it's what is he as a passer, right? We all know what he can do with his legs. That's athleticism, but his passing ability, his decision-making, there's a lot of shades of Anthony Richardson. Ewers, come in, sit. I don't think it can hurt. I'd be okay with it. So that's where we go here, round 5. Round number 6, 186. Talked about this guy last week. We're going to go back to him again. Tonka Hemingway, defensive lineman out of South Carolina. So again, we get our defensive lineman, CJ West, go back to the well here on defensive line. I would totally be open to the Jets doubling up on defensive linemen. I think it's just that much of a need, whether you take a guy on day 2 or day 3, or take a guy on day 2 and then 1 on day 3, or 2 on day 3, like we did, or like I did today was a day 2 and a day 3, whether you take Mason Graham and then go with somebody day 3, however they want to do it. I could see them coming away with 2 defensive linemen. I don't think it can hurt to just add extra bodies there. 5 seasons in college, all at South Carolina. You look at his numbers last year, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 25 total tackles, 19 quarterback hurries, 5 quarterback hits. And his numbers over the last 2 seasons, or rather 3 seasons, have really taken off. 90 tackles, 9.5 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, 54 quarterback hurries, and 13 QB hits over the last 3 years, which is really where he started to take off in his first 2 years, limited playing time. But 2022 onward, you saw some really good things. 70.9 overall grade last season, a 73.5 pass rush grade. More of your pass rusher. Only a 3.5% run stop rate, which wasn't very good. His 65.2 run defense grade was also below average. Again, I could see the Jets going after a CJ West, somebody like that, who is your run stuffer, and then going after a Tonka Hemingway, who is more of your pass rusher. A 10.6% pass rush win rate is something that I think is impressive. Versatile, can play a couple different spots up front. High football IQ, durable. Played pretty much all of his starts. 13 games in 2022, 12 in 2023, 13 last year. A guy that is going to be available, durable, is going to play. Got a high motor. Some of the weaknesses, size, 6'3", 284, not the biggest for an interior defensive lineman, and he's not the most athletic. But a guy that's got some pass rushing upside, can use some work against the run. I don't think the run's as bad as the numbers show, but still needs some work. But it's a 6th-round flyer, and you already took a guy earlier. I could see the path. I could see this as the path the Jets potentially take. And then finally here, we're going to go back to the well on defense, linebacker. Jay Higgins, linebacker out of Iowa, 6 foot 224, senior, has spent all 5 of his college seasons at Iowa. The last 2 years are crazy impressive with some of these numbers. 295 total tackles, 8 passes defended, 3 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 5 picks, 8 tackles for loss. Well, let's break it down. In 2023, he led the Big Ten in solo tackles with 79 and assists with 92. Last year led the Big Ten in assists with 71. His size, tackling, downhill speed, pad level, all things that he brings to the table as strengths, and in weaknesses, lateral movement and coverage versus read options can oftentimes bite and get tricked on read options, something that would need to improve. But his tackling ability, I like. I've talked about Kobe King a lot. I could see a world where the Jets take a late round flyer with either that 5th-round pick, 162, or either of these 2 6th-round picks. Because again, Sherwood, Quincy, outside of that, not a ton. I wouldn't be against bringing in another young depth linebacker. The Jets have had recent success here with young linebackers. So throw Jay Higgins here into the mix as a potential option and someone who we took today. All right, so that'll do it. That's another mock draft. Let's throw it up here on the screen. Again, Armand, Membou, Jaden Higgins, CJ West, Harold Fannin Jr., Billy Bowman, Quinn Ewers, Tonka Hemingway, and Jay Higgins. Overall, PFF liked it. B+, and is in the top 37% of Jets mock drafts. They don't love the Billy Bowman or Jay Higgins pick. Bowman, I can understand because the tackling is a problem. The coverage is impressive. So it's kind of whatever you like. I don't think he's a bad pick if you want to take a guy on day 3. I think he's got a pretty high ceiling from a coverage perspective. Definitely need to work against the run, but someone that is going to ball hawk and you're going to like him when he's running the other way with the football. Jay Higgins, C as well. Late round linebacker picks, PFF don't love them. They never usually love my Kobe King picks either. But again, it doesn't seem as much of a need for the Jets on the surface, but I don't think it could hurt to get another body in there. Other than that, they mainly like Membou A-, Higgins B+, CJ West A, Harold Fannin Jr. B, Ewers A, Tonka Hemingway A-. So overall B+. So let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Like that draft, hate that draft, whatever. Want to provide any of your thoughts. Let me know in the comments section down below. What are your thoughts on the possibility of drafting Armand Membou? I'm totally on board with it. Only time will tell whether or not that's the route the Jets take. Shore up the offensive line, go with the playmaker, get some help next to Quinnen Williams defensively. A lot of areas the Jets can go, and there's still a lot of time, just about a month out from the draft in Detroit. So stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. As always, until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.